Okay, if you want to take your seats, we'll get underway. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking it out till right till the end, and we've got a real treat for you coming up. Just a quick reminder on the surveys on your desk, if you can spare 5 minutes, not during the next session, but certainly at the end, just to give us your feedback. We really want to know what you thought of the day so we can continue to improve. So, a real treat now, our afternoon fireside chat with the wonderful Charlotte Henshaw, who is sat there with 2 gold medals from Paris, but has a plethora of medals from the Paralympians. So, and she's going to be chatting away to Anna Russell, who's the director of CRS and Bupa Foundation. And we will have time for some questions from the audience on this, so have a think about that. So I shall hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Can you all hear me okay? Well, I hope you've had a fantastic day. I don't know where the fireside is, by the way. They always say fireside chat, and I'm, where's the fire? It's great to be here with you, and just an absolute honour to be able to spend a bit of time with you, Charlotte, here today. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Charlotte, and then we'll just get into some questions. So I'm not going to spare your blushes too much because you're amazing. So Charlotte Henshaw, MBE, she's a British Paralympic champion. She's excelled in both swimming and para-canoeing. So Charlotte was born in Mansfield, Nottinghamshire, and she began her journey as an athlete, as a swimmer, representing Great Britain in, it says 3, but it's actually 4 Paralympic Games. So she won a silver medal in the 100-metre breaststroke, SB6 at London 2012 Paralympics, and a bronze in Rio in 2016. And then in 2017, and I think we'll hear a little bit more about this soon, Charlotte, if that's okay, you made an incredible transition from swimming to para-canoeing, where you've absolutely continued to shine and smash it, I think. So you became Paralympic champion again at the Tokyo 2020 Games, winning gold in the women's KL2 event. And more recently, back in Paris last year, you achieved an incredible feat by winning 2 gold medals. So one in the KL2 200-metre kayak event, and another in the inaugural women's VL3 200 metres. And your dedication and hard work have also earned you lots of world championship titles. So it's made you one of the most decorated athletes in para-canoeing. And looking to the future, so the LA Olympics are coming up in a few years' time. So I know Charlotte's just started back into training for that. So hoping to continue her winning streak, and I know everyone in the room is going to be wishing you every success with that. So we'll get into the questions, but first of all, please just put your hands together to congratulate Charlotte. What an amazing achievement. So I hope I didn't embarrass you too much, but it's amazing what you've done. Let's start at the beginning of your athletic career. Can you tell us a bit about what made you become an athlete?
Well, firstly, hello everyone, and thank you for that. It's always a bit awkward sitting there when people are talking about you, and it also makes me realise how long I've been around, which isn't always the nicest, but thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think I was sort of thrust into the world of sport really because of my disability. I was born with a congenital condition, which meant that I had to have an amputation of both my legs at 15 months old. And I was born in 1987, so when I was starting to go through the process of getting my first pair of prosthetics, I was around 2 or 3 years old. So it was the late 80s, early 90s, and to be honest, there wasn't that much opportunity for a young disabled girl to be involved in activities, in sport. And so my parents really had to knock on doors, ask those potentially difficult questions of people to try and give me an opportunity to be an active kid, the same as my friends at school. And I was just lucky, really, that I lived in an area in Nottinghamshire that had a very well-established swimming programme. And so they took a chance on me and gave me the opportunity to learn how to swim with able-bodied children. And it was there, really, that I found the love of sport. And I was taken to the pool, really, to get out of my prosthetics and give me a break from it. But it gave me so much more than that. And I followed that traditional route that I don't know if anybody in here has got kids that do swimming, but it's swimming lessons, and then I fell into a club, and then all of a sudden I was asking my mum to get me up at 5 a.m. to take me to training, which I'm sure she was thrilled about. But I followed a very traditional route, but it was because it was probably the only opportunity that I really had to do something that my friends were doing when they were at school.
It's just fantastic to hear. And obviously you started out in swimming, but then you switched to the para-canoeing, which is amazing. And what was the reason behind that?
Several reasons, really. So I was fortunate enough to swim on the British team for nearly 10 years, did 3 Paralympics as a swimmer, Beijing, London, Rio. And then I was turning 30 the January after the Rio Games in 2016. And swimming is a young person's game. And so I was told that I was getting to be a little bit old. And I'd kind of got to the point where I think I was at the peak of what I could offer the sport. I'd kept up with the medalists from London to Rio. I was the only one that medalled in London and Rio, but it was getting harder to keep up with the people who were in that classification. So I came back from Rio, did a bit of soul searching, and had an opportunity, really, a chance meeting with somebody that was part of the British canoeing programme. And they said, you know, we've had our eye on you for a while, and now you're potentially coming out of this sport, and it's a bit, you're not supposed to approach people while you're attached to a sport. So when they saw that I was coming out of swimming, they kind of swooped in and said, you know, would you come and have a go at canoeing? And I thought, well, okay, I can swim if I fall in, so that's fine. So I went along to Nottingham in the depths of winter, and I needed a new challenge, and I got in a boat and I loved it. And I found it really interesting, actually, to have the mindset of an elite athlete, but be doing something that I was a total novice at. So I think I was really hard on myself at the start because I didn't allow myself the grace of not being very good. But obviously it takes a while to master a craft. And so once I kind of got my head around that, I just enjoyed that process for what it is, was learning a new skill. And within 7 months, I was competing at the European Championships. So they kind of, excuse the pun, threw me in at the deep end. And, you know, I went racing, and I fell in love with this whole new world. And I'm so glad I did, because it's led to actually the most successful period of my career so far.
It's just remarkable. And I love that phrase you just used, that when you were learning something new, that you needed to give yourself the grace to not be very good at something. And thinking about, you know, adaptability and resilience, because you obviously have that in huge amounts, both in life and in your career. But can you talk a bit about what that has looked like for you, and how you stay resilient, how you adapt? And in fact, you were talking earlier about even just in the sport that you do, because of the weather, and you have to kind of be ready for change, don't you?
Yes, and actually in Paris, I mean, you can't really tell in that photograph there, the water does look a bit messy, but we as paddlers are obsessed with the wind. Literally, you kind of walk outside and you look, oh, it looks quite windy today, it's going to be not very nice. And so we turn up to a course, almost inevitably the first thing you do is look at the windsock that's at the side and see which way it's going and how that will affect your race. But in Paris, on that second day of racing, we had a quite considerable crosswind, which we don't like wind that isn't directly in your face or behind you in canoeing. If it's coming from the side, it's very challenging, and it was a stonking crosswind on that day, and we weren't sure whether the racing was going to be postponed or cancelled. So, you have to adapt very quickly in those instances. But I think the biggest kind of very timely situation where we had to learn how adaptable we could be was during COVID, and during that whole process where, you know, we were training for a Paralympic Games that sort of 3 months out from our selection was cancelled and postponed for a year. And, you know, you work on a 4-year cycle in Olympic and Paralympic sport. So for them to then add another year onto that was a huge challenge for everybody involved in elite sport. And obviously was the correct decision. Other things were much more important than what we were doing. But, you know, to learn how to basically train from my patio for 6 months and still be of a level to go and compete at the Paralympic Games the next year, to go into an environment that, you know, a Paralympics has never been run the way that Tokyo was before. It was a completely new challenge. And, you know, people just kind of had to get on with it. Much like in everybody's sector, you kind of had to push the boundary of what you thought was possible. And I think that taught me a huge amount about not only personal adaptability, but, you know, that team around you. And as athletes, we like to plan everything to within an inch of its life, you know. And then we were thrust into this environment where we couldn't plan a thing. And that was a real challenge. And there was no choice but to kind of go with it. And I think, I'm sure I don't speak for, you know, just myself, I think it was a huge learning curve, that whole period for a lot of people.
Thank you. And you just said about, you know, the importance of the team around you as well. And I know everyone today has been talking about the importance of those support systems for employees' well-being. And can you talk a little bit about what does that support system look like for you, and also why that matters, both for you but also for organisations and individuals?
I mean, I think when you see an athlete on the field of play, Olympics, Paralympics, whatever it is, it's the athlete that gets all the plaudits. It's the athlete that crosses the line. It's the athlete that stands on the podium with the medal around their neck. But it's absolutely a team effort. I wouldn't have been standing in Paris with 2 gold medals if it hadn't have been for that support system. And obviously there's coaches, there's physios, there's nutritionists, there's all of those things that when you think about sport, you kind of know that they're part of an athlete's team. But it's the other people as well. You know, I wouldn't have got there without my mum being able to be on the phone when I'm sobbing because I've not, you know, done what I wanted to do, and she's the one that's there to pick up the pieces no matter what. It's the friends that we were just talking about. You know, I've been friends with my best friend since I was at secondary school. And so when they asked to come and see me in the 6 weeks before the Tokyo Games, for example, when we were able to meet up with people outside, they've got little ones that wanted to come and give me a cuddle. And they said, actually, you know what, Auntie Charlotte's going to the Paralympics and we don't want to make her poorly. And it wasn't an ask from me. They just were there and they knew, and they've learned along with me. And I think that is something that people don't speak about often, but it's the people that are in your corner, and almost they've learned alongside you, and they're there to kind of to walk with you in that process. And I think that's hugely important for me as an athlete. And I think in terms of the organisation that I work within, you know, Paddle UK is our governing body. The Paralympics GB is the wider team that I represent at the Paralympics. They're also part of that, and they have to know the intricacies of every athlete, which is a huge task when everybody's an individual and they work towards the same goal but in very different ways. And I think we've learned that it's about good communication. It's about taking the data that you might need to check in on someone, but it's almost useless if you don't then have the conversation to follow it up and sort of humanize it. We fill in a wellness app every morning, which is brilliant. I rate my sleep. I say my mood. I sort of say if I've got any aches or pains. But that information is useless if then the people that look at it don't come and have the conversation to make the change and be adaptable in that moment. So I can write down, you know, I've got a dodgy shoulder one morning, but if I then have to go and plough through the session that was planned, it's not necessarily the best use of that data. But if before the session, the physio and the coach come and talk to me and get a bit more context, we can have that conversation and make the decision that's right. And I think that that's the biggest thing I've learned, is that collaborative aspect of all different bits of information is so important.
I really love that way you've talked about it, and how, you've got those brilliant kind of high-tech tools, but you also need the human element as well, and the two can, really add up to something quite special to support you and the team. And you touched on this a bit, but, thinking about, obviously, you need to be in good physical health, but you also need to be in really good mental health. So how do you manage your mental well-being, and particularly, it's high pressure what you're doing, both at the kind of championships that you're taking part in, but also probably just day to day, and how you manage all of that pressure.
So I actually think that for me, my mental well-being is probably the most important part of my training, and it is training. It's making the effort to make sure that is taken care of, because I think when you're so focused on a goal which looks predominantly physical, being an athlete, I have to be in top physical condition, but if my mind isn't in the right space, it's almost completely useless what physical shape I'm in, because I can't get to the point that I'm physically able because my mind's holding me back. And so for me, sports psych has been probably the most instrumental part in the latter part of my career, that than anything else. And that's in many different forms. I'm not shy about the fact that I've been to therapy. I'm very open with the fact that I really struggled during COVID, and I went for a course of CBT, all online, and that was provided through our incredible support system that we have. And having that and having the ability to work through those things allowed me to then be really present when I was at training. And, the most timely thing I can think of is this last year leading into Paris, I was really, really struggling with the pressure of going into a games as being, the current Paralympic champion. I never feel like we don't have a right to that medal more than anyone else, whether I've won 4 years ago or not. But the title comes with, having achieved that, and you can't get away from that. And so all the questions to me in the year leading up to Paris was, are you going to do it again? Are you going to do it twice? Is there anyone that's going to beat you? And my biggest rival in both my events is British. And so I'm around that all the time. And so it got to a point in July, as we went to the games in September, it got way too much for me to cope with. And so I went to go and see a brand new sports psychologist 10 weeks out from the games. And she was a game changer for me. And we just thought of a whole new way of approaching sport. And I actually, coincidentally, I have it. And I had a motto, "Be courageous," written on my necklace that I raced with. And it was about getting rid of that fear of failing and allowing myself to just be brave enough to try. And so I trained for 4 years to go to Paris, but I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know if it was going to come with 2 gold medals at the end of it. But the fear of not achieving that was the biggest thing that was holding me back. So I really wanted to race bravely in Paris and go, let's see what happens. And it turns out that I probably had the best time that I've ever had at a competition, because I wasn't frightened of what was going to happen. And I think that was a huge life lesson for me, to just have the courage enough to put yourself out there, and it's okay if it doesn't go the way that you want it to, because you've put yourself in the mix to try.
I love that. And racing bravely, it's a great motto to live by, isn't it? And in terms of that bravery, how did you find it? Is there anything particular that you did physically, mentally, to tap into your courage?
I think a lot of it was about staying present. I was a terrible projector of, oh, well, this is definitely going to happen. Or, oh, but what if this happens, this will happen, and sort of catastrophizing to within an inch of my life. But actually, to bring it all back to the here and now, and what could I do in this moment? And at that moment in time, there probably wasn't a lot that I could do apart from do what I could control. Yeah. And also enjoy the moment. I'd worked for 4 years to be able to race in front of a crowd. There was no one there in Tokyo. Yeah. And so instead of seeing it as a pressure that my parents were there and my friends from school, I tried to see it as a privilege and an excitement, and I'm like, isn't this wonderful that I get to do this? I get to do this. I don't have to do this. It's really subtle language shifts that I was reminded of that for me really helped. It wasn't, huge sweeping changes. It was those small things that you do every day of how you speak to yourself or how you think about something.
Yeah, and thank you for your courage today and talking about it, because it's not always easy, is it, talking about these things?
No.
And a lot of people in the room here today will be thinking about their employees in their organisation, their well-being, but also thinking about inclusion. And you're someone who's obviously lived most of your life with a disability. So I think they'd love to hear from you your top tips in terms of inclusive well-being strategies, the good things to do, maybe the bad things not to do. If that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as people with a disability, we have to accept that sometimes it doesn't feel comfortable for people to talk about because they don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't want to do the wrong thing. They don't want to overstep. And I think that for some people, that might be true. But I think it's about meeting the individual with where they're at. Have that conversation. It's not necessarily about expecting that you'll know all the answers, and I don't think people expect you to, but have that conversation, ask the question, and if somebody's not receptive to the question, then at least you know that they don't want to be asked about something. And I think, for me, I'm an open book. If somebody asks me about my disability, I'm more than happy to talk about it, but that's not the case for everybody. And so I think it's about meeting that person where they are, and again, it being a collaborative thing and making sure that they have a seat at the table. I think we see more now, and it's certainly been a case that things that I've observed, is that decisions are being or have been made potentially, but they've not actually spoken to a person that has an experience of something. And so, having that conversation, it might have already been the solution that you thought of, but, it's good to get that other opinion of somebody who's lived it. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I think that the biggest challenge is sort of assuming, and it always comes down to communication, doesn't it?
Well, I was going to say, it goes back to what you were saying before as well about well-being generally, that communication, having the conversations, it's so important, isn't it? And as you say, not making those assumptions, and thinking about how you work as part of a bigger team. You've talked a lot about the team behind you, both personally and professionally, in Paddle UK and at the British Paralympic organisation. And, how important do you think that is for your motivation to have that teamwork, and thinking about how can those things be taken into workplaces? What does that look like, do you think?
I think the biggest thing at Paralympic GB, which is obviously the team that we come into every 4 years as a wider, all the different sports come together under one umbrella. But I think, we don't have that contact with Paralympic GB all the time, but the vision that we have as a team is the same. So we want to affect change through sport and showcase that disability, if people are given the right opportunity, doesn't have to be a barrier to sport, and we can affect change through it. And so again, it's I think for us, we've got a common purpose aside from sporting greatness, which we all want to achieve. We all want to be the best athlete that we can be, otherwise we wouldn't get up at 4 a.m. to go and get on a cold lake. We wouldn't do it. But there has to be as well, and I think the beauty of Paralympic sport is that there's something else. We've got a vision that, yes, what we're doing for ourselves is a great achievement. These gold medals are mine, but what does that showcase to other people? How can we affect change through it? And I think for us, that's part of the motivation. It's not just for me, it's for what it can look like for another young Charlotte who is at home wanting to get involved in activity, but maybe now there will be the option. Whereas for me, it was harder to get that. And that's, I think, the bigger purpose is quite often a really driving factor. And I, you know, speaking for myself, that's certainly part of why I want to do what I do, is because yes, the medals are nice, but what can it leave? What legacy can it leave long after I hang up my paddle?
I find it really emotional hearing you talk about that bigger purpose. I think it's amazing, and thank you for sharing that, because it's very selfless of you to think about it that way. And thinking about purpose, actually, the last question I wanted to ask you about. So at Bupa, we have a higher purpose as well. It's one of the reasons I work for Bupa, and I know a lot of other people maybe work here for that reason. And our purpose is to help people to live longer, healthier, happier lives and to make a better world. But a purpose is no good, which you will know if you don't turn those words into actions. And one of the things that we were talking about that we're doing and have done for the past couple of years is our Healthy Cities Challenge, where we, at the simplest level, ask people to walk up to 6,000 steps a day, or the equivalent in wheelchair pushes or swimming, whatever your sport is, and then track it on the app. And then the benefit is we feel better as individuals. We get to compete as teams, bit of healthy competition. But also, the more people move, the more we put back into the local community for charities. So over the past couple of years, we've invested over £1 million in green projects, so greening schools, greening communities, planting trees in urban areas. So it's a lovely project. But I'd love to know your thoughts about that kind of thing and what you see. You know, we're not elite athletes. I can't do what you're doing. But what kind of role do you think that kind of challenge can play for organisations?
I think it's hugely impactful, and like you said, it's impactful for so many people and for so many reasons. And it's that symbiotic relationship between, you know, this person gets a benefit, but then also this person gets a benefit, and it kind of comes backwards and forwards. And you know, I think it's an amazing initiative. And I know when I heard about it when we met in summer last year, and there was talk about that then, and I think it's an absolutely incredible thing. And kind of a bit linked to what I was just talking about with our higher purpose at Paralympics GB, there's benefit for everybody. So my question would be, why wouldn't people do something similar, you know? And you know, I just hope that people maybe look to Bupa and look to things like that to draw inspiration from them, because somebody's got to be a pioneer in something, right? And so if we can get more people involved in that, then the word spreads, and then hopefully it becomes a much bigger thing, and then the impact, you know, goes far beyond what it had initially started as.
Oh yeah, and the power of, you know, everybody working together. Mr. Motivator, he came. You might not know who he is.
I remember him. Yeah.
I was thinking.
It was a highlight of my life. I met him when I was 6, and it was a highlight of my 6-year-old life.
He's amazing, and he came and did a thing with us for Healthy Cities last year, and he uses the phrase, which I think comes from Africa, which is that, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together, which I just think, you know, it sums up a lot of what you've been talking about. Oh, I was hoping we might have time for a question or two. Do we have time for a question or two from the audience, please? Before we do, really big round of applause, Charlotte.
I'll shout.
I knew I would rely on you. Well done.
Thank you. We spent a lot of this morning talking about and hearing about the sort of the female health and well-being gap. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the disability health and well-being gap, and kind of the needs and the services meeting those needs, and where you see that currently and where you see that hopefully going in the future.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. So again, part of Paralympics GB's vision, and I don't know if you may have seen over the summer, a lot of athletes were kind of doing this pose, the equal play sign. And, you know, the big mission for Paralympics GB, but also wider, is to get those young disabled people opportunities to be involved in sport. And you know, the statistics are woeful, to be honest, about how few young people have opportunities to be involved in sport. And so it's something that we as a team and as an organisation are hugely passionate about, and using hopefully our elevated platforms post games. It's always a challenge because the enthusiastic for Paralympic sport seems to come and go every 4 years. And so it's about harnessing the here and now and getting that sort of word out there, lobbying the people that make the decisions to allow opportunity, I think, is the big word. And it's absolutely, part of our bigger picture in Paralympic GB that we want to make sure that, we're the lucky ones that got that opportunity. We want to keep that going for as long as possible.
Any more questions? Oh, one over here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You spoke about having to pivot your training during COVID to your patio.
Yeah.
I'm just fascinated to know, what did that look like, compared to, I imagine, quite a high-tech gym or fully stacked gym?
Yeah. So when we got the kind of inkling that we were going into a lockdown, I went to Decathlon, and I pretty much wiped them out of any equipment that I could fit in my boot. So I bought some battle ropes. I bought a freestanding weights rack for my garden. I bought a gazebo, which blew down within 2 weeks. So then I had to put a call out on Facebook to if anyone's got a gazebo, and some random man, bless him, came and put me one up in my garden so that I could train undercover. And we have sort of, if you see rowing ergo machines, we have the equivalent for kayaking. So we were fortunate enough that we have the access to that. So we all got shipped off from our high performance centre in Nottingham. We all had our boats on our cars, our paddles in our boots, and then a car full of equipment. And so I would do my ergo on the patio, and I would do the battle ropes down the garden, and I'd set up a chins bar on my kitchen door, and so I was doing chins on my kitchen door. So it was anything that I could use in my house. That it was a real challenge, but I actually really weirdly enjoyed it, because it meant that I explored things that perhaps I'd not been willing to, because you go to the high-tech gym and you just take it for granted. So to have to sort of step back and go, actually, this does the exact same thing, but I don't need all that equipment, was brilliant. And I was really close for my post-training snack. I could just walk out of my garden and go, oh, look, I'm in the kitchen. This is perfect. So actually, some of it was quite good.
That's fantastic. Are you planning to copy it then on your patio?
Oh, yeah, that's all you need. A chins thing on your kitchen door and you're away.
Any more questions? I don't know how we're doing for time. All good? Oh, well, thank you again, Charlotte. It's just been an honour to chat to you and hear about your amazing career, and really good luck for the next couple of years, and good luck with the training. We're all right behind you.
Thank you. And I've got my medals if anybody, I'm going to stick around for a little bit afterwards. So if anyone wants to come and have a look at them, then you are more than welcome.